Okay, so today I'm going to cut the backer board and show you how I'm going to do it. So I have two pieces here. These were the thickest that I could get, and as you can see they're very sturdy. So I'm just going to set one aside and I'm going to work on the other. I have my pages so that I can see the size that I made them. And I'm going to decide how much of an overhang I want, which really won't be much. There may be a slight lip, but you really don't want, you know, like for example on your side. So you can see you really don't want a bunch of overhang because it's going to look kind of silly. So you really don't want that. And the more of this that I can save, the more I can use it for other things. So so I don't want to be wasteful with it. It's pretty useful. So I'm gonna bring it my way so I can see. And let's do it. These pages, by the way, are not the standard 8.5 by 11. I believe they're 9 by 12. Let's see here. Yeah, which I kind of liked that they're longer than the standard. So that way I can have artwork at the top for the title and still have plenty of room for my text. So let's see here. So I'm just going to do a slight. Now this was the 9.5 part. So I'm going to do it 9.5 long, so you can see there, with maybe a tiny bit to spare. Grab my pencil here. Let's see. Let's give it to right about there. And it's okay if I mark on this because it's going to get covered by the leather anyway. So I need to remember how far out I went so that when I do down here in the shadow, it is not helping me. That I remember how far out I went. I really only need 2 points to connect the line. So 2 is fine. You don't have to keep measuring all the way. And I'm just going to go top to bottom all the way up and down anyway. And I'm just going to double check my work and make sure. I must have went off my mark. 9.5. Right here. Probably because my light source is directly above me and I'm working in my shadow. I think that's how that happens. So remember, you will only be cutting once, people. So it is wise to get it right the first time. There we go. Now I'm on a tile floor. If you are on carpeting, you should put something down below it. If you don't have old books or things like that, you're going to have to go with a cutting board. You can get small ones, and you just, you know, if you want to be cheap and you don't want to get a big one, you can just, you know, as you cut, work your way along. The way this is going to work, I have my X-Acto knife. I have not worked with this particular knife in years, so this blade may need to get thrown out. We'll see. So you're going to say to yourself, well, Myrna, this is really thick, and you're just not going to get it in one pass. That's fine, because we're going to make several passes. So at first, make sure you go straight up and down. You're not like that, because you're going to cut an angle into it. This has some thickness, so make sure that you're straight up and down with your knife. And make sure your thumb here, I have my thumb, is not like that, so I don't like mow over it. Okay, so watch your thumbs. Make sure you're straight up and down, and don't worry about pressure. You're just scoring. You're just making a little tiny crevice for your knife to stick. Okay? If you worry about pushing really hard, you could break your blade, and you could also end up cutting yourself. So you're better off going light and easy and do it a couple of times. And you're just going to keep going like that. And little by little, you're going to be cutting into it. And I can feel that it's down just a little bit further with each pass. And I'm definitely past the halfway point. So pretty soon I should be hitting the other side. I'm trying to feel with the blade. You'll feel a difference in texture once you've hit the other side. Especially this book. It's a journey, not a race. So, you know, I've thought about it. I think the saddest day of making this book will be the day that I finish, which really should be never. I should never technically ever finish this book. That would be like finishing a photo album. I should always have new memories to add. So that would truly be the saddest day, would be the day I finish the book, when I have nothing else to add, nothing more to learn. That would be tragic. So, with that in mind, I'm in no hurry. I'm just gonna keep going. Yeah. When it gets to those last little threads that are hanging on, you might want to fold it in the opposite direction and make sure you get them, because it's kind of tough to get those last bits. And so there we are. Now, this is the other side, and double checking, this should be, yes. So this is my good side. So you can see these edges have some papers rolled up coming off of them. That's fine. If you're really worried about it and you just want a perfect edge, a metal nail filer will get that right off and clean up that edge. So I'm not going to show you, you know, me doing the other cuts. It's rather boring. So I will make my last cut here, cut my other side board, and I'll be right back. I finished the front and the back of cutting them. And I left just a little bit of an overhang on all sides, except for the spine. I left a little bit more room in case I needed it for turning pages, if I needed a little bit of I guess, for pivots. So you can see right there, there's the space that I left extra. Now, this is the part where measuring the spine is going to come into play. I like mine like a traditional book, which has the square back. It's just a matter of how you want this to open and how you want it to look and how you want it to work. You can do a bowed part. I know in working with paper, you could get the middle of this wet and work it with your fingers and get it to bend. And then when it dries, it would stay. So here are the finished pieces. You can see how they fit together. I decided to make the spine overlap, you know, instead of going on the inside here, I'm having them go on the outside, so it'll fit like that. Just because when you open the book, I want the fold or the bend to be here and not here on the spine. So I can always put lettering on the spine, or, you know, like a traditional book. And I won't have it butt right to it like this, the way the pages are. These will kind of be in a little bit, just to give them some pivot room. And that's why books have what's called a head collar. It's usually like a braided cord that goes here to cover this gap, because, you know, when you open the book, you want to have a little bit of wiggle room for the pages. And so as you can see, that's how it's going to fit. So I have just a little bit of an overhang to protect the edges of my paper. And so now I'm at the point where I am ready to start covering my book. So here is the way that my book will be fully opened. And I have it, I guess you could call it face up, depending on what you call the face. I'm going to call the inner pages the face. But basically it's up like this. So I have, here is my my outer fabric. So I have it turned over because this outside is what I want to show. And here's how I have it laid out. I bought two because back when I was making this book, I hadn't decided on how big I wanted it. And so to make sure that I had enough overhang and all that, I bought an extra piece just to be safe, because, you know, it was cheaper to add the extra piece than to pay for additional shipping later to send it if I needed it. So that's fine. I can always make another book of something else, or maybe make it as a gift. So it's not a big deal. But anyway, this is the one sheet, how you buy it from, I think they're called Hollanders. I'll have the link at the bottom. But this is how big it is. So this is, you know, my 9x12 book. And you can see I have plenty of room on either side. In fact, I might actually have a little too much, because when this folds over, you can see that's quite a bit of overhang. Once you do this, and then you do the other side, it's going to leave this tiny little square for your, you know, for my beautiful paper. So I want to maybe overlap by an inch, but no more than that. So I have this cut, and you'll notice that I left some gaps here. These gaps, because again, this board is a three-dimensional object. So whatever thickness this is relatively what distance you're going to need for when this folds up, so that it has room to do that. And so it's probably slightly smaller than the gap I made it. That was just for cutting purposes. It's such a small amount. If you were to measure an exact inch all the way around and then after the fact did this, you're barely going to notice. It's such a small sliver of a number that it's going to shave off the ends that it's really not going to make a big difference. So it's okay if you cut and forget to do that. I think this is actually a little big for spacing, quite honestly, but it's fine. It's a small amount, so no big deal. But before I start gluing this down, I wanted to give you the opportunity now for creativity as far as your cover goes. Right now, the way this cover is, it's a straight color. And if that's what you want, then that's great. You can start gluing. But for me, that's not what I want. I would like to do a two-tone. And roughly kind of like this. So I want that light, I'm going to call it camel, even though it's not the color they gave it. I'm going to give it a camel color, and then the emblem there, it's not going to be centered like it is. I think I'm going to move it slightly upwards so there's some balance. But that's how I want it. And if you wanted to do corners, this would also be the time to do that. Now, you can always glue everything on and have everything glued together, but I worry about the longevity of it and also the craftsmanship, which is an issue for me. I like things to look nice and be a certain way. And if you're that way too, you're gonna want to do this. So before I glue, I just wanted to measure everything, make sure it will fit. Now I'm going to take my boards back off. And for this section, I'm going to measure out however far out I want, probably like that, for the camel color to cut in. So I'm going to measure from here to maybe here, and I'm roughly speaking, I will use a ruler, and I will cut that section. Then what I will do is I will lay it onto the back of this so that it shows, sandwich the two together, and on my sewing machine, stitch it together in this color. So you're going to have the two-tone like that. So it's going to have a nice stitching on either side. It's going to look very professional, very nice. And of course, the emblem I want to stitch onto the front as well. So if you wanted corners, again, this is the time to do it, especially if you want it to have that level of craftsmanship, to have it stitched on there. And I'm going to use this sewing machine. If you don't have one and you're patient and you've done it before, you can always do it by hand. I would never suggest that anyone do that sort of thing by hand if they have never done it before, because I'm afraid you will probably bite off far more than you can chew. You will be frustrated. Your stitches will not be even. It will be that one thing that you look at that aggravates you every time you go to use your book. So for that reason, I'm going to suggest that unless you know what you're doing, don't bother trying to stitch it yourself. Just go ahead and glue it on. I'm just not a big fan of the glue for environmental reasons. And of course, there's just a very nice look to something stitched.